You're saying, I'm not saying what God is and what God isn't. I'm saying when I do go down there, when hell, supposedly.
Yes.
Now, I'm not a particular sinner, but since I have abandoned all faith in God, I will go down to hell. It's what you said.
Well, I am a particular sinner. I've lusted, I've been greedy, I've been proud and arrogant, I've been mean, I have gossiped, I've slandered, so I am a sinner in desperate need of God's grace. Maybe you're different, but sir, I've spoken on university campuses now for over 40 years.
So you believe that God has always existed because the Bible says that?
No, I believe that God is eternal because that is the most plausible answer to the question, what was around before the universe? Okay?
So
It's back to mind and matter. Do we come from mind or do we come from matter? What do you think is the most plausible to believe? I personally feel it is ridiculous to think that we come from matter. Why? Because of free will, love, meaning and significance. Because of this innate drive to know God that is shown by anthropology around the world. So that's why I believe it's more plausible to believe in the beginning God than it is plausible to believe in the beginning hydrogen.
why not add another one though?
Okay, what?
Do you have any reason to not say that there was something before that created God?
Yeah,
Is there
because
any-
the definition of God is one that has no greater. There's nothing greater than God, or no one greater than God. God is eternal. God is spirit. He's not matter. God is a spirit. And you see, what frustrates me is when people say to me, well, you see, Cliff, the reason I can't believe in God is because I don't believe in anything that my five senses can't perceive.
Obviously.
Thank you. Obviously, that is a crock. The statement itself, I don't believe in anything unless I can sense it with my five senses. It's self-contradictory. You can't pick up with five senses. The only thing I should believe is that which I can pick up with my five senses. I mean, it's so self-contradictory, it's scary. You know, I like you. You're a thinker, aren't you?
Yes.
Thank you so much for raising those issues. Yes, sir.
Have you ever thought about your God as being an egotistical God, the Christian God?
Yes,
Yeah.
sure.
And what are your thoughts about that? Do you have any?
You bet. Because the Bible says that God created us to worship Him, my first knee-jerk reaction is, what type of an egotistical God are you? Creating us to worship you. But then when you think about it more deeply, what you begin to realize is, the reason God creates us to worship Him is because that is where real fulfillment, meaning, personhood is found. What do I mean? Everybody here worships something or someone. To worship simply means to consider ultimately worthy. Often the intellectual elite worship the human mind. Human mind is ultimately worthy of my devotion. I think it's obvious that on a campus like this, there are some people who worship sports. And some of the athletes walk around as if they're gods on this campus. All right? So we all worship. Others of us, we're really into the frat sorority scene. And we know what the real purpose of life is. We worship our nerve endings. Maybe we call it, or we worship orgasm. That's ultimately worthy. Some of us are into career, making a lot of money. So we ultimately think that money is ultimately worthy of our allegiance. And that's why we work as hard as we do to make as much money. Now, what Christ says and what the Bible says is, if you worship one of those idols, you'll ultimately be empty and frustrated and unsatisfied. And my observation of life is, it's exactly right.
So what if I choose to worship? Let's say you choose to worship God, right?
Yes.
And that brings you all three of those things. Your life
Yep.
is completely successful and awesome, right? But let's say I want to worship that piece of grass right there,
Yes.
But I gain those same three core pieces that I gain to lead a successful life. Then what would you say about this? Would you say I have a different God and that's okay for me? Or would you still say I need to turn towards your God in order to...
Oh, I would absolutely try and convince you not to worship the grass, because I'm convinced the grass cannot define the meaning of your life. It cannot give you real love, and I don't think the grass can give you life after death either, unless you define life after death as becoming fertilizer. I would define life after death as the real you enjoying God and enjoying people for eternity in heaven, not becoming fertilizer. So I would do everything within my power to convince you to stop worshiping the grass and to worship Jesus Christ, to worship the living God, because I'm convinced it'll be far better for you.
In your eyes, do you believe that Christianity is the best religion?
Do I think Jesus Christ is more reliable than any other option? Absolutely yes. Why? Because nobody lived the quality of life that he has lived. Secondly, his ethical teachings are incredible. Thirdly, as he's dying on a cross, he prays, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And fourthly, 3 days after he dies, he rises from the dead.
So what makes Jesus Christ's teachings better than any other, say, my polytheistic God's religion teachings?
Well, you're right. There are many ethical similarities between all the major world religions. But Jesus Christ doesn't call us to an ethical system. He calls us to himself, to trust and believe in him, to have a relationship with God. And that relationship will go on for eternity in heaven. And there's a big difference between heaven and nirvana. And there's a big difference between karma and grace. And there are similarities, but there's some major contradictions between Hinduism and Jesus Christ. So you got to figure out who's telling the truth, the avatars of Hinduism or Jesus Christ. And the only way you can answer that question is by studying the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, and also by studying the New Testament Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And then you have to decide, does the evidence point to the avatars being reliable? Or does the evidence point to Jesus Christ being reliable?
What makes Jesus Christ essentially the person that has the best teachings?
It's not a question of, we see, man, when you read the Gospels, Jesus never says, I've got the best teachings. That's not his point. His point is, I am God who loves you, who wants to reconcile you to myself, enter relationship, put your faith and trust in me, and I will forgive you for your sin. I'll give you eternal life. And then, yes, there will be profound ethical consequences of genuinely putting my faith in Christ. But I don't believe in Jesus because nobody agrees with the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. No, all religions have some type of the golden rule in it. The evidence is you cannot trust institutionalized Christianity. Jesus Christ is different from institutionalized Christianity. So I'm out here pleading with you all, read the source documents, the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the eyewitness accounts of Jesus. And ask yourself, does the historical evidence of the way Jesus lived his life, treated people, the evidence of his teachings, the evidence of the way he died, loving and forgiving his enemies, and the evidence of the way he rose from the dead, does that evidence not point to Christ being really reliable and trustworthy? So it has. I agree with you. I'm embarrassed by what a lot of institutionalized Christianity has done. Crusades, Inquisition, Salem witch trials. List goes on and on. But Jesus Christ, he's amazing. He's incredible. He's magnificent. Put your faith in him, not in institutionalized Christianity. And every culture has good, and every culture has evil. And that's why I don't put my faith ultimately in culture. I put my faith in Jesus Christ, who, by the way, was not an American. By the way, Jesus was not a Republican. By the way, just in case we're confused about it, Jesus was not a Democrat. And by the way, when Jesus was born, he was not wrapped in an American flag. By the way, Jesus was a Palestinian Jew who, when he was born, was wrapped in swaddling clothes and laid in a manger. He was not born in the Big Apple, and he wasn't born in Charlotte or in Chapel Hill. No offense to you North Carolinians. Jesus Christ is not for one race. He is not for nationalism. He's not for a particular economic system. and he's definitely not for one race. The majority of followers of Jesus Christ today live in Africa, Asia, and South America, not in the West.
So, your explanation of culture being the cause of this evil in church doesn't really make sense to me.
Man, I hopefully never said culture causes the problems.
The problem's in
Culture is made up of people. And every person that I've ever met at times does good and at times does evil. That is why every culture has some good and some evil. Because culture is made up of people. A guy once said to me, all I need to know about Islam is 9/11. Man, that's narrow-minded bigotry. You don't learn about Muhammad from 9/11. You learn about some Muslim fanatics from 9/11. If you're going to be an open-minded thinking person, you better get the Quran, and you better read the Quran, and you better find out, does the evidence point to Muhammad being reliable, or does it not? And then based on how Muhammad lived, what Muhammad taught, what happened to him after his death, you either decide Muhammad's reliable, or he's not reliable. Do the same with Jesus Christ.
Okay, so I've taken multiple philosophy courses, like studied like Camus, like people that you've been talking about. Yes, I've studied these people.
Good.
And I've read their works. So in discussion of like religion in relation to like the moral compass or like your moral position in life, I've always thought of or like have been taught that this moral compass is like, it's like the moral compass as described by religion has been like a coping mechanism for these like complex thoughts that we can't explain other than just organized religion. So like, would you agree with like the fact that we have these complex thoughts and the only way that we as humans who are like very, very small compared to the nature of the universe, do you think that's like the only way that we could rationalize that is through organized religion?
You use the word coping?
Yeah.
That's not a coping mechanism. It's a description of reality. It's a truth claim that the man or woman who you're having a racist attitude towards has intrinsic, innate value. And the only way that can be true is if they're not simply a coincidental collection of atoms. They've been made by some type of God for a purpose. You don't have purpose, you don't have God. Yes, I can create my own purpose, and I can say that my purpose in life is to rip her off, or my purpose in life is to help her. It's all relative, right? But I am convinced that you're not an accident. I'm convinced that your purpose of in life is not going to be defined ultimately by you or by me or by any church. It's defined by God, who gave you the gift of life, who created you for the purpose of loving Him and loving others.
Right, why should I care, like, what you choose to do doesn't directly impact me?
Good. Okay, so let's say I go up to this woman, haul back, slap her in the face. Doesn't affect you, you're over there. Do you care that I slapped her in the face?
I mean, that would be a bad decision, yes.
Bad decision? Oh, it sounds like you've made a judgment call. You've just said that me slapping her in the face is bad.
Yes.
Why is me slapping her in the face bad? Please tell me.
Because you're hurting another person.
Because I'm hurting another person.
There's no cause for anything.
And there's no cause. Well, believe me, I can come up with a cause, okay? I can come up with a reason. You can easily come up with a reason for hitting me, okay? You don't have to be too smart to figure that one out. So, all right. So then I guess the whole question becomes, when did her life begin? You've made a decision that she's alive now, so I better not slap her. So what happens if she's 1 day old and I slap her in the crib? Is that okay?
Is he going for the... No, that would probably kill the baby, so...
Oh, the baby.
Yes.
So we're talking about a human life.
Yes, yes, it has.
That's what I imagined.
It has
Exited the womb, entered the world, and now exists and no longer attached.
Right.
Can do what?
She's out of the woman.
She's out of the woman.
Yes.
So your definition of human life is, you got to be out of the womb.
Yes.
Okay. In light of the fact that 6 weeks after conception, that, quote, little piece of skin in a woman's womb has brain activity and heartbeat. In light of the fact that at UNC Chapel Hill Medical Center, if a body lying on a bed has brain activity and heartbeat, and you're ethically and medically responsible to do everything to sustain that life, why on earth do you think that a little baby inside a mother's womb that has brain activity and heartbeat is not a human life? Why?
Has no concept of anything else.
Has no concept of anything else.
No, like absolutely
It's
no
also, it's just a clump of
attachment
cells.
to- Yeah, it is a clump of cells existing to like live off of a body.
Yeah. Have you ever watched a sonogram? Watch what a little baby inside a womb does when they start to suck it apart? Yeah. You ever seen one of those? I'd encourage you to see one.
I mean,
Okay? Because you can no longer conclude that they don't have feelings. Obviously, when that little baby begins to pull back from the instrument that's grabbing them, there are feelings involved. Obviously.
It does not know how to process feelings. It's like a clump of cells that has never experienced anything other than being in a womb.
Really?
It's
And
never
how
had
much does
any
a
other
one-day-old infant process?
It can express pain through crying, and then like the mom has
Good.
a reaction to it.
That's
and
right.
It has like
Yeah.
it's been outside of the womb. It knows more than being in a womb, like only living off of whatever the mother is living off of.
Oh.
Why do we have to prioritize the child?
For the same reason that I prioritize you. You're a human being, and so I'm going to prioritize you.
Okay, so if the woman has like a medical issue and a medical abortion is like necessary for her to survive, would you prioritize like the baby or the mom in this
mom.
scenario? The mom? Okay.
Yeah, I'd prioritize the mom.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to murder a child because it happens to be inconvenient.
What do you classify as inconvenient?
I think you have a pretty good idea based on the debate you've been involved in.
What if the
If
baby?
you don't have the financial situation, the situation to be able to raise.
Oh, that's a great point. Oh, shoot. Mom and Dad do not have the financial ability to give me the good life. Therefore, Mom and Dad better wipe me out. That doesn't make too much sense. You gotta be kidding me. You think the value of a human life has to do with Mom and Dad's ability to provide financial support? Are you kidding me?
You're assigning thoughts and feelings to something who like literally does not understand the concept of anything. Like
Yeah, one-day-old infant doesn't understand much either. And just because a one-day-old infant doesn't understand much doesn't mean we just liquidate him. That's infanticide. So you're basing human value on amount of knowledge or the ability of Mom and Dad to provide a secure environment for them to grow up in. I don't agree with it all. And I'm glad your parents didn't make that decision when they had you.
If you believe God is omnipotent, then you don't have free will. And then if you think he's not, then you do have free will. It's a paradox. Where if he knows that if he's all knowing, then he knows how everything's gonna play out. So that means you don't have free will, so everything you do is already known to him. So I was just wondering what he thought about that paradox.
You bet. When I think about it, that is the following. God's all powerful. That doesn't mean that God cannot limit his power by giving us a free will. And that's exactly what I believe. God is all powerful, but God has chosen to partially limit his power by giving me a free will. Which means, if I go here, slap this man in the face, and turn to you and say, God made me do it, I'm a liar. I'm a con artist. God gave me a hand to love and respect this brother, not to smack him. God will hold me responsible for smacking him on a day of judgment. Why? Because he gave me a free will. I didn't have to smack him. I chose to. I am responsible for that decision. The only type of personal being I know has a body. God doesn't have a body. God is a spirit. Now, God chose to reveal himself in a body in the person of Jesus Christ, but still, I have a relationship with a being, a personal being, who doesn't have a body. That's going to be different. There's going to be a lot of mystery there. I can't audibly hear God. I can't physically see him or touch him. But he's real as a spiritual being.
So, by defining what evil is, would you say that God created evil?
No. Evil is taking something good and using it for a wrong purpose. Evil is using this hand, which is a good gift from God, smacking him. Evil is using the tongue that God has given me and making a racist jab at him. It's taking something good and twisting it, perverting it. Sex is good. Outside of marriage, outside of a lifelong commitment between one man and one woman, it's wrong. It's taking something good and twisting it. That's what evil is. See, in other words, the devil is not very creative. God's the creator, and the devil just takes God's good creation and twists it and perverts it. Who is Christ to you?
A historical figure.
How did you find out about this historical figure?
I wasn't raised religiously, but growing up in the South, it's learned through osmosis.
Right.
I went to church with a few friends Sunday, like it was a social thing for me, and
Right.
I think he was a radical liberal in a historical sense, pushing against an oppressive regime to make people's rights better.
Why do you think you're valuable?
I think I'm valuable because I'm valued by other people.
What happens if other people denigrate you? Does that change your value?
I'm valued because I want to continue living.
You're valuable because you want to continue living? What happens if you want to commit suicide? Does that mean you're less valuable?
Then I would serve no further purpose on earth if I was dead.
Well, now, according to Jesus Christ, you're valuable because you're a human being created in the image of God. It makes a lot of sense if you look at your experience of life, I dare say. When people don't love, things get pretty ugly. When people do love, they get rather beautiful. So Christ makes a lot of sense. He claimed to be God in human form. And then he backed that claim up with an amazing life, incredible ethical teachings, a death where he forgives his enemies, and then a resurrection from the dead. If he really did rise from the dead, the evidence is he's the truth. He's reliable. So please read the Gospels for yourself.
I have.
Okay, and then what did you conclude about Jesus?
I couldn't determine whether or not his resurrection was as it's written in the Bible. It's a historical text over thousands of years old and has been copied into different languages and translations and other manuscripts dozens of times. And while those translations are like they're interpretations. I believe that each time that the Bible becomes transcribed and reworded, that the meaning is changed based on the cultural context. I don't know how Jesus was resurrected. Did he probably leave the cave? Potentially. Was he fully dead? Did someone nurse him back to health? I don't know.
How about people being willing to die for their claim that they saw Christ risen from the dead?
People are willing to die for modern politics and their countries. I think that they're entitled to that, but it doesn't prove to me, coming thousands of years after those people and not having witnessed those events, that...
But people are not willing to die for what they know to be a lie. And these guys said, we saw Jesus Christ risen from the dead, and they died, not for a faith, not for their country. They died for what they claimed to have seen, the dead Christ risen from the dead. Does that not give weight to their testimony?
It gives weight to what they believed in. Yeah.
No, they didn't say it's a belief. They said we saw him risen from the dead. We ate meals with him. We held him, grabbed hold of him. We saw him risen from the dead.
Like, what would you say are like the big misconceptions about where they might have problems? Or like when people say like, I don't believe in faith, I believe in science. How do you deal with that space?
Right. Okay, good question. When someone says, I believe in Christ, not in science, what are they saying? They're saying that science is a good branch of knowledge. But if you think you can go on a scientific date, that's going to be a horrible date. Because a date is building a relationship with a person. And that is not a scientific experiment. That is a relational experiment where you're finding out, can we trust each other? Can we love each other? Can we respect each other? And do we enjoy each other? So to think that the only way truth can be known is through science is incredibly narrow-minded. It's incredibly bigoted. The very statement, the only way you can know truth is through science, can't be proved scientifically. It's a philosophical statement. So it's self-contradictory. When you think about reality, when you think about your experience of life, you begin to realize science is good. But so is philosophy. So is historical knowledge. So is your personal experience. You and I as human beings have rational minds, but we also have emotions. We also have a will. We also have the ability to love and to really care for each other. And that is beautiful. But if you think that I can show you a pound of love in the bottom of a test tube, that's impossible. So there's so much more to reality than just material things. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, well, I guess what would be like the biggest things that you would point to, like demonstrating that like it does not, like besides you said the philosophical claim that's like, you know, science is the only way we can know the material world, right? So like what other things would you say like science can't prove? Like there are things that science just has no business in doing.
Science has no way to answer the question, is there an intelligent mind behind the universe or not? That's not a scientific question, that's a philosophical question. Secondly, science has no way of determining, is this good or is this evil? Science can answer the question, if I put strychnine in grandma's tea, will she die? And science says yes. If you put strychnine in grandma's tea, she will die. But science can never answer the question, should I put strychnine in grandma's tea in order to get her inheritance? That is an ethical, moral question, and science has no ability to answer the ethical, moral question.
So, like, for me, I would say, like, I tend to be more, like, I don't know if there is an objective morality that I can claim to. I tend to presuppose certain things. For example, like, an axiom I'll try to maximize is I think we should try to benefit, like, human well-being in terms of quality of life and quantity of life. And generally that means trying to maximize pleasure, minimize pain, like doing what's best for society. So that's what so I don't know if I necessarily say there's objective right and wrong.
When Adam and Eve rebelled and decided to play God, all havoc broke loose. It wasn't just them. Obviously, there accounts for there is an enemy. There is Satan. That's a force of evil in the world that is not only impersonal but destructive. That lies and steals and kills and destroys.
Right. You're saying most of the suffering we see today would be, in your view, a combination of two things, like Satan and the fall and the chaos that introduced, and then also like human free will, right? I guess, like, do you believe in some form of, like, heaven or afterlife? That is... Absolutely. And, like, would you say that's, like, the maximum amount of, like, good or pleasure we'd be able to experience? How would you describe that?
More immeasurably good than I could ever imagine. But the problem with that, I feel like, is, well, is that some comfort to people who are suffering here and now? I mean, we would have to say yes to a degree, but at the same time, it's like, well, why is that still going on?
Right now, if we have free will in the like material world, and they're suffering as a result of that, we seem to agree on that. I'll grant you that free will exists, and that can lead to bad things.
Right.
But then you say heaven is like the highest good, right? And you kind of dodge the question as to whether or not free will exists in heaven. So it would seem that if free will exists in heaven, then there's also suffering in heaven. Or if free will does not exist, then there is some way to maximize good here without free will that God has chosen not to engage in.
I think part of the exciting thing about heaven is that it's not just a new heaven up in the sky. It's also this earth. And that's the radical message of it, particularly in the New Testament, is that the kingdom of heaven is within creation, is within you. That's what Jesus said. The kingdom of heaven is within you. And this earth is not going to be tossed out. That's why we have to care for it, is because this will be a new earth as well.
Are you an atheist or agnostic?
I don't think they're mutually
It needs to go back on him, Rob.
I would say agnostic atheist. Like, the way I've heard it explained is atheism or theism is a claim to, like, belief. Gnosticism or agnosticism is like a claim to certainty. So I would say my belief in God is the same as my belief in aliens. I don't think, like, it's impossible for God to exist. I just haven't seen evidence that suggests it does, and therefore I don't believe it.
If there is no God, the majority of atheists, scientists that I know, would say we are predetermined, we are determined as human beings, and it just appears like we have free will.
Right now, I don't think any of us, or I guess you would claim to, like, none of us can know for certain whether we have free will, in my view. I think we act as we do on a day-to-day basis for the same reason we act like we can know about the external world. Because if
How can you not know that you have free will, that you're about to go to class? And it's your choice to go to class and not somehow behaviorism or your own neurochemicals. Do you truly think that you don't have free will? How can you stand here and say that we don't know if we really have free will or not? I mean, you know that, man, in your lived experience. Get out of the brain in the vat, and in your lived experience, are you actually going to say that you don't have free will to make that choice whether to go to class or not?
It depends on the conversation I'm having. So I'm probably going to say no because I'm assuming we're having like a philosophical conversation.
No, we're not just having we're having an existential. We're also having a type of very nitty-gritty experiential conversation. I don't want to live in the clouds. I don't think you do. We want to live in the pragmatic, mundane type of world, reality.
I'm an atheist and I think we have free will.
How? Explain that.
Because I think our environmental factors and genetics give us a predisposition towards certain behaviors. But at the same time, I do think, sorry, my allergies.
All right, keep going.
I think we have a certain predisposition towards certain behaviors, but at the end of the day, I think it's definitely based on our choices. Because, like, for instance, if you come from a broken family, like, that can influence you to either continue the cycle or it can make you say, you know what, I want to be better than this.
Right. But how can you have free will if all you are is chemicals evolved to a higher order? There's no you if there is no God. There's matter and energy. You're a complex compilation of matter and energy, but there's no you. There's no soul. There's no free will. There's no consciousness. You just exist as a complex biochemical reaction.
Because God knows past, present, and future. So wouldn't that disprove free will if He already knows what's going to happen?
God has chosen to partially limit His power by giving us a free will.
Just the fact that He knows everything that's going to happen already suggests that our will isn't entirely our own.
But when we say that God knows that everything's going to happen, what we mean is God is outside of the dimension of space and time. God is eternal. He's outside of the dimension of time that you and I are locked into. So due to His perspective outside of time, He sees past, present, and future at a glance. Now, I don't understand what I just said to you. Why? Because I'm locked into time. But God is not a slave of time. God is outside of time. He's eternal. He can see everything at a glance. It means you and I can still have free will, even though God sees the future. Now, what do you think about Jesus Christ?
I think He was a real dude, but I don't think He had any sort of magical powers or anything.
Right, but the historical evidence is that 3 days after He died, He rose from the dead.
So the only historical evidence we could possibly have is anecdotes. And
why is that?
So how would we record that?
Well, is it an anecdote that Washington was first president of the United States? Is it an anecdote that John Wilkes Booth shot Abraham Lincoln? Or is that historical knowledge? Is it an anecdote that Dr. Martin Luther King got assassinated? And the evidence is Jesus died, and 3 days later, He rose from the dead. And over a period of 40 days, He appeared to over 500 people who saw Him risen from the dead. Great question. Yes, sir.
So this was a hypothetical. Or actually, can we go back to free will for a second?
You raise whatever you want, but just go fast. Go.
Yeah, awesome. How, just so we were sharing like common ground, how would you define free will? Is there a way you could define it for like absent God?
Free will means you're an autonomous individual who makes your own decisions.
What do you mean when you say makes your own decisions?
You decide what you're going to do. You decide whether you're going to go to class or stay here. You decide whether you're going to respect me or be disrespectful. And I do the same. I can walk away, I can be disrespectful, or I can be respectful.
So is it fair to say then, like, free will, you can define it as, if I were to be able to observe, like, every molecule around you right now, or you, I still wouldn't be able to predict with perfect certainty what you would do next? Like,
that's correct. You cannot take my chemical makeup and say, you have to do this tonight.
Sure.
Because I don't have to. None of you have to do whatever you're going to choose to do tonight. You have a free will. Now, guys, if anybody says to you that's wrong, you look them in the face and say, I'm sorry, my experience of life is I don't have to love, I can hate. I don't have to respect people, I can be disrespectful.
Isn't that just an argument from intuition, though?
It's an argument from experience. I'm appealing to your experience.
Can you explain the difference? Because it seems...
No, I can't.
Okay.
I'm just saying, because I'm talking to a large group of people who have experience.
Sure.
And I'm saying, come on, guys, wake up and smell the coffee. You know you have free will because you experience it on a daily basis.
But there's a lot of concepts people, like, had beliefs about that we now know, or at least think are incorrect based on what we've discovered. Like, there's a litany of beliefs about, like, disease or natural phenomena that people were like, my lived experience tells me it's this way. We find out later at a point in time. That's actually not.
Sure, that's happened.
Can be deceiving.
Yes, that's happened, but you can't live your life as if somewhere down the road they're going to discover that I'm not standing here.
Yeah,
you can't live that way.
Sure. That's why there's a separation between, like, academia and, like, really dense philosophy and, like, I don't know, what I'm doing right now. Like, I'm going to go watch my Spanish class and learn about grammar. Like,
and every philosophy professor has to go home and decide, am I going to love my spouse or hate my spouse? Am I going to be respectful to my spouse and children or not? So we all have to live our lives.
Sure.
And when we put our heads on the pillow at night, all of us have faith. All of us have a meaning in life that either we've accepted from God or we've constructed on our own. That's inescapable for all of us. That's your life. It's my life.
For me, what would it take to believe the claim today that somebody rose from the dead 3 days later? Because that, to me, is a pretty extraordinary claim that doesn't seem to line up with what we observe throughout human history. It seems like there's this one instance, and it hasn't really happened since in thousands of years.
Right.
So it seems pretty implausible, given what we know,
all right,
for that to happen.
It's an amazing claim, right? And so what's the criteria for seeing what the evidence is for the reliability of that said claim, right? First of all, it wasn't a secret. It was made public. It was a public claim. Over 500 people claimed to have seen Jesus risen from the dead. It's not just Christian writers who wrote about this. There's also plenty of Jewish historians, Roman historians, and others who wrote about this. So you have to then ask yourself the question, well, what would it take? Would it take a picture, a before and after picture of Jesus dead and then Jesus alive to prove that he rose from the dead? Would it take a video? Would it take him doing it right now?
Like, a guy dies, I'd want, like, vital signs.
Okay.
Like, when he dies, I'd want, like, observations while he's dead, and then I want vital signs measured after he wakes up. And I'd probably want it to be reported on by multiple news outlets and other sources across the spectrum. So it's not like a small group of people where there could be biases, influence of drugs, other sources of
mass hallucination.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So you're wanting multiple eyewitnesses who have a somewhat of a cohesion to their testimony of what actually happened. Do you not have that, not only with the Apostle Paul, not only with Tacitus or Josephus or Suetonius or Flavius or Pliny the Younger or any of these other guys? Do you not have that in these thousands of people who actually went to their death, who were killed for claiming to have seen Jesus rise from the dead? That's a lot of people.
The tools they had at their disposal in terms of just observation, like just being able to see something without the use of a lot of the methods and tools we have today, is pretty hard for me to buy that claim, because there are a lot of things that you cannot observe externally, especially in matters like bodily function, that you're not able to garner.
See, I have a hard time with that objection because I feel like it is a type of chronological snobbery in the sense of, do we really think the Roman Empire didn't have a good way of killing people? They perfected it, right? It was the crucifixion, beheadings, all sorts of that. They jammed a spear in Jesus' side and they saw a watery clot come out of him, suggesting massive heart failure.
Yeah.
He died. 2 people, Josephus and another guy, Nicodemus, or Joseph of Arimathea, they wrapped his body, put him in a tomb. He was dead. Then they had Roman centurions. They conquered the known world at that time, posted to guard the body. They had people there, not just 2 or 3, not just people on drugs. These were trained killers. These are the soldiers, these are the special forces of the Roman Empire, right? So they knew he was physically dead. Then they had heard of a prophecy that he would rise 3 days later. So they put even more soldiers there. They spread it out through Jerusalem that this was going to be the disciples were going to steal the body. So they had all these angles, like you asked it as far as your request of multiple media sites, this and that, physical criteria of them. So Jesus then rose from the dead. He appeared to his disciples, appeared to other people, ate with them, talked with them, walked with them. So I don't know what else you would want.
I guess I gotta go here in like a minute. But yeah, I guess, I mean, if y'all are around later, I'd be happy.
There are a lot of aspects of the Bible. Let's say, okay, just to preface this, if you sin every day, you're going to hell, is the general consensus, right?
False. I sin every day. He sins every day. Okay? We put our faith in him. He's given us the gift of eternal life. Now, do we change? Yes. We sin less. But sir, to think that I don't sin every day is naive. It's a very superficial, trivial view of sin.
So if you do it your way, you get tortured. If you listen to God, then you don't get tortured.
No, I don't think hell is best defined as torture. I think it's best defined as separation from God, which is total emptiness. And yes, there will be suffering, because I will be totally separate from the being who is good and who gave me this good gift of life.
There is no justice, there is no good, there is no hope, there is no love.
Correct.
Is what hell is.
That's right. You do not enjoy. There'll be no party in hell. No good times in hell.
I'm asking what there is in hell. If someone wants to stay in hell, then they found something positive in hell.
Rich man in hell is saying, send Lazarus to warn my relatives, and also send him to give me something to give me relief from this. And he's still, while he's in hell, he's still giving out orders to God, to people, and he's basically saying, I'm the one you have to follow. Does that make sense?
But he's not given a name. He's just given the name Rich Man. So there's no direct name, and that's the only case in all of the New Testament where you actually get that. So what does that mean? He's lived for money. Money is his God. And so what does he say? I'm uncomfortable down here, and yet I still want to stay in hell. That's the interesting thing about hell. I am comfortable down here because I definitely don't want to serve in heaven. I don't want to have to worship any type of God who tells me I have to live a certain type of way. And yet at the same time, it is uncomfortable.
And since all things positive come from God, doesn't that imply that God has some influence on hell?
Well, of course God has some influence on hell. He's the ultimate judge. But in hell, we're going to be separate from the God who we never wanted to live together with. See, an atheist doesn't find God for the same reason a criminal doesn't find the police. He's running away. An atheist doesn't find God, not because there's not enough evidence that God doesn't exist. An atheist doesn't find God because they got the same problem I do. Arrogance and rebellion against God. And therefore, intellectually, we get blinded because we choose to shake our fist at God and say, I will be God. I'm not going to submit to you. I'm going to do my own thing. I resent you.
I mean, aside from the fact that philosophy is pretty much what founded America, you're saying, I'm not saying what God is and what God isn't. I'm saying when I do go down there, when hell, supposedly.
Yes.
Now, I'm not a particular sinner, but since I have abandoned all faith in God, I will go down to hell. It's what you
Well,
said.
I am a particular sinner. I've lusted, I've been greedy, I've been proud and arrogant, I've been mean, I have gossiped, I've slandered, so I am a sinner in desperate need of God's grace. Maybe you're different. But sir, I've spoken on university campuses now for over 40 years. And I've only met one student, he happened to be a student at MIT, who claimed to be sinless. And when this MIT student said, I've never sinned, all of his MIT classmates burst into laughter. Why? Because they knew that all of us have sinned. We know that. We experience guilt.
I'm just confused. You said what isn't in God. You said that the rich man actually enjoys hell.
No! Rich man does not enjoy hell.
You said that he's uncomfortable there, but he still wants to be there. Like, I don't like math class.
He has chosen to be there by living his life separate from God. He wants to get out of there, and he doesn't want his siblings to come there.
In hell, there is no influence of God. Or at least once you get into hell, God doesn't do anything. He's separate. So in hell, it's just pure free will. Complete and utter free will. Because there's no one to interfere. There's no higher order telling you what's good, what's bad, what's just, what's unjust. It's just people. That's what hell is, essentially.
We don't know that many details about hell. The Bible doesn't describe it with that kind of specificity. Okay? So I don't know exactly what's going on in people's minds and hearts in hell. We don't know that.
So what you're saying is, if you bow down to a supreme being, then you get to have a good life, and if you choose free will, then you have a bad life.
No, I freely accept Christ because I see the evidence is he's reliable. I don't bow down to him because I need to genuflect. No. I bow down to him because I acknowledge he is God. My buddies bow down to money. The majority of my buddies bow down to materialism, physicalism, materialism, money. All right? I insist it is far wiser to worship Jesus Christ than it is to worship a large stock portfolio. But everybody worships. Everybody bows down. Everybody submits.
So, you need to submit to God in order to go to heaven, correct?
No. You need to put your faith in Christ, and he saves you by grace. Then, as a result of your genuine love for Christ, you will seek to obey him, and yes, in a sense, you will submit to him. But to submit to him does not mean you cross off your mind, you just blindly believe. It does not mean that. It does not mean that you don't have a lot of existential ethical decisions to make, and you just submit. No, it's not a blind submission. It's eyes wide open. The evidence is Jesus Christ is reliable, and therefore I'm going to obey him with my sexuality, my money, my power, my career, my life.
2022 years ago.
Okay.
The historical records, while they are mostly complete, you can't really verify that he was actually dead. You can't really verify much about that time. Again, even if you do prove that Jesus was real, which he was, historically speaking, you can't prove that he was the Son of God. Again, God didn't grace the earth, just Jesus.
I mean, do you need him to put in skywriting? Do you need like a picture? Do you need a video? Like, because it could all be photoshopped or altered. So just because it happened 2,000 years ago doesn't mean we have to be suspicious about it. I think Socrates was a real guy. I think Alexander the Great was a real guy. Obviously, you've acknowledged Jesus Christ is a real guy, real person. So now the next step is, well, is he who he claimed to be as the Son of God?
When I was a kid, I lived about, I think, 4 miles away from this mental institution. There was a guy over there who claimed to be the Son of God too. Doesn't mean I believed him.
Good.
Why?
Because he's in a mental institution. The guy clearly is insane. Back then they didn't have mental institutions. How do I know Jesus didn't belong in one?
Why do you think there were so many Messiah movements at the time of Jesus Christ, as in hundreds, and they all petered out? Like Bar Kokhba was one of them, but Christianity ended up taking over the whole Roman Empire and then spread to the whole known world, and now 35% of the world is Christian, based off of that historical event, the resurrection.
I agree that he died.
Okay.
And then I don't think he came back.
Okay.
I don't think his first death was a real death because it wasn't proven to be a real death.
Okay, proof. Let's define proof. First of all, there's microscopic amounts that you can prove, even in the great US of A. Secondly, no one really agrees what exactly the term even means. So let's use evidence, historical evidence. No, empiricism, no, that also gets to more scientific types of evidence. So, historical evidence. One, the head of the Sanhedrin, an incredibly well-known tomb he was actually buried in. The Romans knew about it, the Jews knew about it, those who professed faith in Christ knew about it. So, scholars don't disagree with that. They say that yes, there was a well-known tomb, and that it ended up being empty. Scholarship agrees on that. Then scholarship agrees that these disciples, Peter and others, actually had an experience with Jesus Christ and had tremendous life change. Who was persecuting Christians the most at that time? Paul. Well, Nero too, yeah. Paul, and all of a sudden, he turned from Saul to Paul, a total identity crisis because he had an encounter with the risen Jesus Christ. There's no other way to explain that historically than if he had some type of encounter. Maybe he was on some type of hallucinogenic. Most likely not. Most likely he had this encounter. Next would be understanding that it was women actually to the tomb that found Jesus first. Josephus and many other secular scholars were making a mockery of that. They said Christians are actually claiming that women did it? That's a total joke. Over here, the Romans were torturing women to death who were Christians because they thought women were just trash and dirt. Next would be this explosion of the early church. It didn't make any sense that Jews actually had to jump through so many hoops. They thought there'd be a general revelation at the end of time, definitely not a single revelation, and definitely not Jesus Christ in weakness, dying and actually rising from the dead. And now you have thousands of Jews becoming Christians overnight based off of not Facebook's beautiful proclamation of gender identities or something that's very attractive, based off of something that they claim to see, and then based off of those who actually got the eyewitness testimony. So Luke, for example, said, I'm giving an orderly account. In that day and age, orderly meant to take it tremendously seriously in the sense of I am giving you the evidence. So it's all about evidence. It's not about blind faith. It's not about gullibility. You, my friend, have to come up with, okay, that didn't happen. What did happen? Because we're both detectives on a crime scene. You can't just say, I don't know, and the burden of proof is simply on me. The evidence clearly shows that no, most likely he actually did rise from the dead. And he was doing miracles. He was claiming to do miracles. He did them. He was living in a supernatural kind of way. You even have secular sources claiming that he claimed to do miracles, and he did do miracles. Now, I know that there was absolutely more of a little bit of an understanding of the supernatural could happen, more likely than our day and age, but you even had enemy attestation to his supernatural claims. That's weird. At the very least, you gotta...
It's not really weird in my opinion. It's just weird. What happens when you're a really good liar.
The message of Jesus is that he came, lived a perfect, sinless life, faced every temptation that we do, every single one, every temptation, whatever it is, whether it's temptation for money, sex, power, whatever it is, he faced all those temptations, lived a perfect life, showed that their perfect love is real, demonstrated that at the cross, that there is no greater love than when one gives their life for another. So he took the penalty for my sin. I still live with the consequences of my sin, right, in this messed up world, but the penalty is taken, and so therefore, as I trust in Jesus, I'm never going to get it perfect. It's not that I don't, I missed church one Sunday, and then I fall out of faith with God, okay, right? So it's more, okay, how am I actively living it out every day, and realizing I'm not perfect, and so I need a perfect Savior.